If you are ready to rock and roll, Nicole, let's go ahead. Take it away.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I will kind of tailor this a little bit differently since we have about half the group that is using SmartList Builder and about half that either hasn't and isn't using it or doesn't know what it is. So I'm going to start out kind of describing what it is. So those of you who use it, stick with me. We'll get you some of the stuff that might interest you in a little bit here. There's my email information. I'll show it at the end again, but if you need anything, certainly feel free to reach out to me. And we were certainly able to help you here on any of the builders, or if you have any questions on any of our other products, reach out to me and I'll get you in touch with the appropriate contacts. Okay, so what are the builders? When we talk about SmartList Builder, it's more than just that, or even what is SmartList Builder? So there's 4 modules that come with SmartList Builder, and so I like to refer to it as the builder since it is more. But the first is SmartList Builder, and that allows you to create new smart lists. So if the default ones that you get, you use the sales transactions every day, but it really doesn't have all the columns you want, or maybe you do something with a third-party module and there is no smart list that integrates with that, we can use SmartList Builder to create new lists to grab the data you want. And we'll talk about what data we can pull in there, but basically we can get almost anything you need out of your GP data into a smart list for you to use. Okay, so that's SmartList Builder. We also have Excel Report Builder. If you've been shown the Excel reports, or maybe you use them, Microsoft ships a couple hundred different Excel reports, and those are refreshable right from within Excel, so it's very similar to SmartList. The data they actually pull is the same as SmartList favorites you have by default. The difference is I don't have to run it in SmartList, export it to Excel, and then if I need to refresh it, go back and run it again in SmartList and do the export again. It automatically refreshes right in Excel. So if you're doing the export a lot, you might want to look at those Excel reports as well, and the Excel Report Builder will help you build new ones of those. Navigation List Builder allows us to create new navigation lists. So if you're using the navigation lists that are on the left-hand side in GP, when you go to, say, the financial or the sales pane, and you click on one of those lists, those are navigation lists. So if you're using those, they either pull in so much data it's not usable, or some of them just might not pull in the data you need. We can build new ones of those as well to get you that data. Those are our 3 basic reporting modules, if you want to call them that. The 4th one here, Drilldown Builder, actually adds on to the Excel Report Builder module. And what that allows us to do is create drill downs or drill backs, if you want to call them, from Excel back to GP. And that allows us to open GP windows or GP Smart Lists, and then we can kind of take the data in Excel, and maybe you're clicking on a customer ID, we can drill back to GP on that customer ID and see more detailed information. So it's going from Excel back to GP, and there are some default ones that come built into GP. They're kind of hidden, you have to find them, but they are there. Well, there's probably, I think there's about 10 of them, so Drilldown Builder allows you to build all the other ones you might want. And there are some restrictions, we'll talk about that when we look at Drilldown Builder, but you can also take that drill back and put it into SQL reporting services, or maybe you want it in an email. You could put, it's a hyperlink, so we can put it in an email or anything, so if somebody clicks on that link, as long as they have GP open and they have access to what they're trying to open, it'll open that link for them automatically. Okay, so those are the 4 modules in the builders, and we'll look at them today here, but with those modules, so with the first 3 of them, since the 4th one doesn't really build reports, what data can we use? The first option is going to be your GP tables. And now that's going to encompass anything you enter in GP into the core modules like financial, sales, payroll, purchasing, all of those modules, as well as any add-ons you might have from Microsoft like the human resources, manufacturing, AA, that type of thing, and any third modules you might have that integrate with GP as well will be pulled in with that GP table option. So if you're using 3, 4, 5 different third parties, we can pull in those tables as well. So that's going to encompass most of the data people want, but there is always data outside of that, so we have some other options. Second option here is SmartList. So we have a SmartList table type that there's an asterisk there because we added that in 2013. So if you're on something 2010 or prior, that option wouldn't be available. But what that allows you to do is either take the setup from one of the defaults, so maybe account transactions, and you want to modify that so you can add some columns, maybe format some fields differently, that type of thing. We can take that and bring it into SmartList Builder and modify that default list. When you do that, the favorites come with it, so all your favorites you had created there will come over into this SmartList Builder list that we're going to create, and it will all be there for you. The other option you have there is to create brand new lists with the setup of a default list. So maybe you don't want to modify the account transaction list, but you want to create a second one. We can bring that in as a new table into a new list, and we'll have a second one that's by default set up like the account transaction one would be, and then you can do your modifications there. So that's an option there. SQL Server Tables allows you to pull in any table or view from any database that's on the same SQL Server as your GP databases. So maybe you're using CRM, maybe you have some custom tables or views. We can pull in that data and have it report in SmartLists so that you don't have to go between several different applications to try and report on different things. Internally, we do that a lot for CRM because CRM doesn't contain all of our data. Some of it's in GP, some of it's in CRM, so we're linking that data together, for example, on customer IDs, and then I can have one report in SmartList that shows me all of the data from both of those products in one list. So we have that. SQL scripting is a new to 2013 as well for SmartList Builder and Navigation List Builder, new to 2015 for Excel Report Builder. But what that allows us to do is if you're more comfortable typing in select statements than trying to link all the tables, you can do that. Or maybe you found one on the web. There's a lot of different MVPs out there that will write select statements for you to create views that are basically building reports out by default. So you can get the select statement out of their views, paste it right into the builders, and it'll pull in that same data. You didn't have to do anything within SQL. You didn't have to do anything of knowing how to match all the data together in the builder tool. You just pasted in that SQL script and it pulled it in for you. So that's an option. Data connections is there, and it's very similar to the SmartList option, but it's really designed to be for Excel Report Builder, whereas SmartList tables are for SmartList Builder. The data connections are designed for Excel Report Builder. Data connections will show up in SmartList Builder as well so that you can use it, but really you'd use the SmartList option in SmartList Builder if you're going to go that route. But the data connections mimic the default Excel reports. And then if you're using eOne's Extender product, we have that available as a resource as well so that you can pull in the table or the windows and forms that you're creating in Extender and have those in your list. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to GP and just give you an idea. We're going to build some out, so hopefully those of you who already have it might see me do something that you didn't know you can do. Those of you who don't will get to see what it can do. So first, just to show, oops, sorry about that, let's update that, what it will look like in SmartList after you create one. I have a budget versus actual list here, which GP doesn't have in SmartList by default. There is nothing about budgets in SmartList by default, so I had to build one to get that data for me. So now you can see here, I have a budget list. I'm pulling in my different budgets by year, and of course I only got 122, so there might be a restriction on here. I think it's a restriction for a specific account number here, it looks like. But you can see different things that I'm doing. I'm pulling in all the columns I wanted, and I'm actually doing a multi-company report here. So SmartList Builder will allow us to do multi-company. I'll show you that setup here. But we can do a lot of different things that the default ones won't do. So I'm just going to click Modify here on this list, and it's going to bring us into SmartList Builder so that we can see the setup and do anything we want to it as well. So this is the one I've set up. I've chosen what's it going to be called, which folder in SmartList is it going to go to, and then I had to add on tables. So you can see here I have several different tables, and the icons kind of tell you what type of table it is. The ones that have this grid with the blue bar on top, like the Budget Summary Master, are GP tables. So I've just simply pulled in the budget tables from GP along with the Account Master so that I can have the description and that kind of stuff on my account. And then I've selected which fields do I want by default and which fields do I want available to display. So these fields that aren't marked in either column, I cannot have on my SmartList at any time. The ones that are marked in display and not in default, aren't going to show up by default when I run it. So like the period date isn't on here by default, but it is available if I go to this columns button back here in SmartList and add it. So you get to choose which ones are there by default, which ones do you want to be able to have available to add as well. The other table type I have here is SQL script, just to show that we can intermingle different different table types. So this one just allowed me to type a select statement in here and link it in just like I would anything else. And then it's going to pull in the data that that select statement is told to pull. Okay, and I'm just using that SQL statement to go get the actual amount. So look at my transaction tables, figure out how much have I put against that budget, and give it to me. GP doesn't store that, so we had to calculate that out. We also can do calculated fields. So the variance isn't something that GP stores either in any tables. You have to calculate that. There's windows in GP, they're calculating it on the fly. We had to calculate it on the fly here, so we created a calculation called variance that just takes the budget amount minus that actual amount that I got out of my SQL script and is reporting that back to me. So you can do calculations. It's always going to be a new column and calculate on every line. It's not going to be like a totaling or anything like that, but it's a calculation per line item. Okay, I said we had a restriction on here. We can do restrictions that can be just about anything. You pick the field, you pick the type, so you can do where it's equal to one of the items you type in a list, is it greater than, equal to, all of those different restrictions. And once you do one, it's going to apply to that report no matter who runs it by default. You don't actually see the restriction back here, let me cancel out of here, in SmartList. So you still have your 4 here, but this list is always going to be restricted by whatever I put in as a restriction in SmartList Builder. The nice thing about SmartList Builder and Navigation List Builder, I can actually apply restrictions to certain users. So something like this where I only want certain users to see this account, other users should see all accounts. I can apply this restriction. You can see I applied it to SA and Bob here. Lesson user 1 would log in, they're going to see all accounts on this list. So you can do restrictions like that. Very common ways to do that is salespeople, managers, departments, that type of thing where you might want to restrict the data down so that they're only seeing their specific data. Okay, so we can do restrictions there. And we talked about the multi-company option. So I can turn it on and have the data show for as many companies as I need. Now you do have to keep in mind this is SmartList. How much data should we try and return to it? And when you add companies, you're multiplying that by however much data is in each company. So you got to keep in mind, is that effective for the report, or should we do something, maybe some restrictions before we do the companies, that type of thing, because it will only return the number of records you tell it to, and so if it never makes it out of the first company, you aren't even going to see data from the other companies. We can also do summary smart lists. A summary list allows you to do basically a group by function, and so that means I can group this list. I could roll it up all by the budget ID and the period, for example. Then I would see one line for that period and budget ID, and it would total up all the different budget amounts for all the different accounts that are in that period into one line. You can do a sales report, grouping it by customer, and you'd see one line per customer with their total sales. So we can do those summary options in SmartList Builder as well. Let's build a new one here though. Oops. So I'm just going to click in here, and so we'll give it an ID, and we're just going to do a very simple GL batch to start here, our financial batch list. Okay, so we'll just call it financial batch, and then I'm going to give it the name I want it to have actually in SmartList. I can't type today apparently, and we'll put it in the financial series. Okay, now to get started we have to pick tables, right? I don't know if you guys know what table the batches are in. I'll pretend I don't, but I can look in this list and try and figure out what table it is. Or a feature that we added, so those of you who have it already might like this. If you go to the window that you know the data is on in GP. So I know this is the data I want. There might be a combination of a couple windows you need to get all the data, but you can find that data somewhere in GP, an inquiry window, a transaction entry window, wherever it be, you've entered it somewhere, so you should be able to pull it back up. So this is what I want. So now I can go to Tools and go to Table Finder, and we added this in 2013 SmartList Builder. If you're still on 2010, as long as you're using the eOne's latest download of SmartList Builder, it'll be in there too. We rolled it back to that. If you're on a previous version of 2010, before we put that in there, we'd have to get you updated to it, but it is there for you. So now it tells me this batch entry window has these 12 or so tables on it. So I've narrowed it down. That list was pretty long when I looked in SmartList Builder, but I've narrowed it down here to what tables are truly on that window. But you can narrow it down farther just by picking fields that are on that window, and it's going to tell you where that field goes. Okay, sometimes you get lucky and it's just one table. Sometimes it might be 2 or 3. You might have a transaction table and a master table, or it might be a couple transaction tables because it's in work or history type of scenario. So you just kind of have to pick once you get it narrowed down as far as you can. You'll also see on the right here that we have some information about that table where you can actually build out a select statement if you need to by picking the columns you want, or you can see that it has 48 records in it. What series it's in, that's going to be important to us in a minute here. We can actually preview the first 100 records of that table by clicking this little preview icon over here. And if you haven't started a list yet, you could actually click one of these 3 buttons to start a new list depending on where you want it to go. We've already started ours, so we're going to come back to SmartList Builder and go back to Add. And the Table Finder is also here. It just doesn't pull in a window for you, so it's kind of nice to pull it from the window you know the data's on. That way you have that window to open, look at what the fields are called, plus it pulls that window in for you. Okay, but we know it's called the Posting Definitions Master, and the big deal here is this said it's in the Company series, so I actually have to switch to Company and look for that Posting Definitions Master, and now I can hit Save. Don't worry about those key fields here for now. Those 99% of the time you'll never have to change. If you do, it's when a go-to isn't working, but we'll talk about those here. So now I have that table in here, so I can start marking the columns I want. The tables by default come in the position they're in SQL in that table. So I'm going to order them by display name so I can see them alphabetically and just pick the fields I want. So we'll get the comment, the number, the batch total. We'll just go down and get the origin and the number of transactions. Okay, I'm just going to save this just so you can see it happen in SmartList. Now the auto refresh of SmartList is also new to 2013. So if you have it open, it automatically refreshes it. If you didn't have it open, when you launch SmartList, it's going to give you a message to update SmartList with the new changes from SmartList Builder. So you just say yes to that and then it will update it. So you can see here's our batch list. Now this doesn't just have general ledger batches on it. I see inventory, I see payables, I see sales orders. So we need to do some work on this, as well as I don't like the column names. Origin should tell me what the origin is based on what the window says. So the window calls it general entry, clearing entry, budget transaction. I don't want it to be 1, 2, 3 here. Let's define those. So let's go back to modify it again. And first let's do our restriction to get it just to be financial batches. So we're going to add a restriction for the series is equal to financial. Okay, and I'm going to leave that for all users because anybody who runs this should expect just a financial batch list because that's what we called it. Now let's rename some of our columns. So batch number on the window is called batch ID. I'm going to put our default columns on top here. So we're just going to rename this to batch ID. So you simply just type over the display name. We can rename this to journal entries. That's what it's called on the window. Simple as typing in new names. Okay. Let's fix our origin column so that we have what 1, 2, and 3 mean. So I'm going to come into this blue arrow, the field settings next to this display name field, and most drop-down lists are going to be defined for you. If they're not, you can type them in. And this one happens to follow the order of the window. I won't guarantee you that all of them do. I will show you here in a second after I'm done typing this where you can find those if they aren't pulling in. So I can save that. And let's save this again and see what changes we've made. So now we have a shorter list, our name is defined, and our columns are renamed. Okay. Said I'd show you where to find those drop-down list values if you don't have them. VictoriaUden.com. So as soon as it comes up here, you'll see the spelling of it a little bit bigger. So VictoriaUden.com is where you can find these. There's other sites out there. I just come here because they're quick and easy to find. Under GP tables, you pick the module or the series that you're looking for, and then you can find what those different values mean. Let's see, I picked the wrong series, I guess. But so this would tell me if I'm looking for the series in the tax table, here's what they mean. If I'm looking for the batch frequency, here's what I would type. So I'd type 1 on the left side, single use on the right side, so that it displays single use instead of 1. So she's defined most of those. If she hasn't defined it, somebody else probably has. If you give her feedback, she'll probably put it out here within a day or two so that it is defined for you. She's very open to that feedback, so certainly give it to her. But I use that site a lot just to find those different values if they aren't defined there. So, okay. So some other things we can do to this. We can reorder those columns. So I would like to comment right below the batch ID when somebody runs it. So I can move that up. Maybe I want the origin below that comment. Whatever order you want this in, you can save it. And now they're reordered when somebody runs that default one. Okay, so they're going to be in the right order. Used to have people just modify lists just to get the debits and credits on the financial transactions lists in the right order. They've changed that now, so you don't have to modify them. They're in the right order. But we used to use that a lot just to do that. Okay, we can also create go-tos. So a go-to is when you double-click on a record in SmartList and it drills back to a GP window. Okay, we have a lot more options in SmartList Builder as far as the go-tos. We took all the built-in ones, so all the ones SmartList has by default, we have them built in starting in that'd be 2013, I think, where we added those in. As well as you can go to any other window you want to. But you can also go to other SmartLists. So maybe you're creating a summary one, and when you click on that summary record, maybe on that customer, you want to drill down into their sales detail. You can create a go-to that drills back and forth between SmartLists. You can go to websites. Maybe you store a tracking number for UPS when you ship something. In a field, we can have it, take that tracking number, go to the UPS website and put that tracking number into their tracking system to show you where it's at. So we can do things like that, as well as open extended resources if you're creating those. So we can do an open form. And I'm just, oops, not manufacturing, GP. We'll just open that batch entry one, and then I can tell it that I want to pass the batch number through. So I just had to tell it batch ID is what I want to pass through that batch number field. Let me close that batch window. Okay, so now if I click on, we'll say the PM Pay, it opens that batch entry with PM Pay. Probably should pass the origin so that I get it to totally populate the window, but you saw it pass through one, so we could go add the origin back to it. Okay, the other thing I want to do here is I want the status of these batches. Okay, there is status fields in here. There's a batch status. If I order this by display name, there's a batch status. That's going to tell me, is it posting? Does it have errors? You know, different things like that. But I also want to know if there is no transactions. I want it to tell me that there is no transactions. If it's reoccurring and it's been posted the max number of times, I want it to tell me that. Or if it hasn't been posted the max number of times, It's just available. So I want different statuses like that, and they're all available in this list. If we go down, there's reoccurring, there's all that, mark to post, all of that is available. I want it in one field. Okay, so we can do a calculation to put all of that into one field. So your calculations aren't just adding and subtracting type of calculations. We can do a lot of different things in here. So we're going to create one called status. It's just going to be a string field because I want to return kind of that nice text of what's going on with that batch. And then I'll just show you the functions here. So there's the basics, add, subtract. You have date functions, so you can find the difference between two dates. You can get today's date and find out how many days out their due date is, that type of thing. Mathematical functions, you can round values, that type of stuff. String functions, so you can trim off trailing spaces, you can trim off the first three characters, you can make it all uppercase, that type of thing. And then we have a few system functions. We're going to use one of those here. You can cast stuff if you're storing it as a string and you want it to be an integer. Maybe you're storing a dollar amount in one of those user-defined fields. We need to cast it as an integer before we can add something to it and that type of thing. We're going to use a case statement, which is an if-then scenario. I already have it created here, so you can see it over in Notepad, and don't have to watch me type it, but you can see I'm looking at mark to post. If that's true, or 1 is how SQL stores it, then I want it to tell me it's marked. Go through all the different batch status that are available and tell me those. Then look at, is there any journal entries? If there isn't, tell me there's no transactions in that batch. Then we're going to look at that batch frequency and go through that. And if none of those are true, just tell me the batch is available. So I know it's available to post. We're just going to copy and paste this. Validate that. We're good to go, so we'll save it. And now we have our calculated field, so we'll turn that on. We can go to columns and move it if we want to. And now we have that status of that batch. So you can see most are available. The one has some errors, so I'd need to fix that one before I can post it. So you might be kind of creating an outlier report. I could put a restriction on this where the status isn't available and have that outlier, what do I have to fix report before I can post them. So that's kind of a SmartList Builder. I've shown you a couple of the new features. I do want to show you one other SmartList option. So we talked about being able to modify the default ones. So for example, account transactions. In SmartList you can't get notes onto these transactions. It'll show you a note index, which is just a number assigned to that note. It'll never show you the actual characters you've typed in that note. So we can actually modify it. And you can see here, it brought that SmartList in, so it brought that account transaction one in. If I put the default columns at the top, it's bringing in the same columns that are defaulted in SmartList. And the difference, how I know this is bringing in a modified one versus one that I've created brand new in SmartList Builder, is it says existing here. When we created our batch one, it said new. So that was a new one. This one's existing. We're modifying an existing SmartList. Okay, so I can just come in here and find, I'm going to order these by display name now so I can find it. We'll find our note. So there's our note index. I'm just going to rename it to notes. And then I just need to come in here and check the box that says show note for that note index. So I don't even have to link a different table on to get the notes. I just have to check a box and it'll do that linking for me. And you can do that for account numbers as well. So if you have an account index, you can link on the account number instead. I turn that on to be a default column. I'm going to save this. And now, I thought I added a note to something. Okay, well let's just 1546, we'll add a note. So there's my note that I just added on. Now, SmartList only allows 256 characters in any one cell that it's going to display, so it will be limited to that. But at least we get our note in there. So very simple change, but just to show you that we can modify it. Now I said all of those favorites would come through, so those are all those default ones Microsoft ships with. They all came through with my modification. If I click modify again, it put an asterisk behind the SmartList ID, so now I know that is truly modified. Before it didn't have that because I hadn't hit save to actually create a modified one. Now it's a modified one, so I get an asterisk there so you can tell that. For those of you who have done that and didn't mean to do it, you can click delete here. Looks like it's gone, but if I just relaunch SmartList, go back to our financial series, it's back. Favorites are still there. Our notes column is gone because we deleted the modified one. If I go back to modify, the asterisk is gone, so this one isn't modified anymore until I click save. So if I just click clear, it's still not modified. Okay, so you can modify those default ones. Just be careful if you're going to do that instead of creating a new one that mimics that default one. What are you going to change in it? Adding stuff is great. You know, that's not going to hurt anybody. If you start removing columns, you start taking away some functionality, you may be breaking other people's favorites. You know, if I took a column away that their favorite was searching on, their favorite is now broken because that column doesn't exist in it anymore. So just be careful what you're going to change that other users aren't using that information. And if they are, just create a brand new one instead of modifying it. Oops, we want SmartList. So I'm going to go back to our financial batches. And what I want to just show you quickly is Excel reports and navigation lists. So we're going to go over to duplicate under options. And instead of creating a brand new one in Excel report builder or navigation list builder, I'm just going to duplicate this one. So if you already have it created, you want to go over to Excel reports, you can just duplicate. And now I have that same list in Excel report builder. It looks very similar, so once you know one, you know them both pretty much. There's just a few little changes because you're using SmartList versus Excel. One of the big things is we don't have our default column because Excel doesn't have a columns button just to go add columns on the fly. So let me check just the ones we want again. Now I have to remember I renamed them. Okay, and we can go into our columns button here. I think that's how I had it, close enough. But when we did that, our restriction came over, our calculation came over, so all of that came over. Excel report builder is a little different. It doesn't have a summary option, so we can't do that group by, but it does have multi-company, and you can actually do just multi-company default. That means I'm going to create an Excel report for each company. You can consolidate it all into one workbook, and that way you have a different worksheet or tab in that workbook for each company. So it's still individual reports, it's all just in one Excel spreadsheet or workbook, or you can consolidate it all into one spreadsheet inside that workbook. So that would be similar to what we saw in SmartList with our batch or with our budget list. Okay, so you have those options there. I'm just going to publish this. And when I do that, you can go to the reports library if you already have those default ones deployed that Microsoft ships. You can go to that same location. It's called the reports library. You can go to a SharePoint site. I'm just going to go to a file for the sake here of just putting it on my desktop. And I'm going to publish that. And I'm going with default permissions. I'm an admin, but nobody's going to get access to these reports until you give it to them. So you can see now here we have that same data in Excel that we had in SmartList. The big difference here, if I'm just, actually that's not the window I wanted, is that if we're in Excel, I want to mark one of those batches just so we change our status. So in the series post, we'll just mark the GL batch. And so now if I just come and refresh, I'm not seeing it all here. Let's make this big. Refresh all. Now that GL batch is showing marked. So I didn't have to go back to SmartList, re-export it, all of that. I can just simply refresh in Excel, or you can close the document and reopen it. I can change this back, go back to the refresh, and now it's available. So you can actually leave this open on your desktop and just refresh it whenever you need to see new data. Okay, we're going to integrate our drill down builder with that just so you can see that happen. So I'm going to go back to GP here and go to our drill down builder under the same SmartList Builder menu. And I have one created for account transactions. And so I've just said I want to go to the account transaction SmartList because I want to see the 10, 12, 15 transactions that are in that batch and kind of verify maybe there's errors. I want to see those. And so when I do that, how do I want to drill back to that SmartList? I want to go back by that batch number. Okay, so I just have to create a parameter and then tell it that the batch number is equal to that batch number parameter, or the batch number in that SmartList is going to be equal to that whatever I put into this parameter. So that's all I set up here. Then I go back to our Excel report and find our financial batches and go to a drill down. We're going to add that in. And you pick the column you want it on. We'll just put it on our batch ID. And you can see here is the one we created. All these ones that start with open are those ones that are default with Microsoft. So there's 15 or so there, whatever it is. Those come default with the default Excel reports. So now it says you have to tell me where your batch number is. So we call that batch ID in our list. So I'm going to pass that through. I save this. I have to republish it so that change gets into my Excel report. And now let me close SmartList and all these different windows so you can just see it happen. And so now I'm in my list again. We'll look at this PM check one here that has 13 records. I want to see what those 13 are. So I can click on it. You have to say yes to get out of Excel and into another application. And now behind the scenes we got another window open here for GP, and it opens SmartList. And it opened to that account transaction list with just the PM batch open. Now I could add the batch number field. Oops. And now we can tell that that's just the PM check one. Okay, it's not 13 because you see both sides or all the debits and credits of those transactions. So you can do that. Now you do have to have GP open, be logged into the right company, and have access to what you tried to open. So if I didn't have access to that account transaction SmartList, that wouldn't have worked. I would have gotten a security error. So, but that is Drill Down Builder. The last thing I want to show you in the product here is Navigation List Builder, and of course we're going to duplicate over so that we don't have to create it again. And now I have it in my navigation list. You can pick display and preview. When I show you this, you'll see where there's a display section and preview. You can pick which goes in where. We still have our restrictions, our calculations. There is no multi-company or summary in Navigation List Builder. Partially how navigation lists work in general, we can't integrate that in. But you have actions. So we had go-tos in SmartList Builder, drill downs in Excel Report Builder. They're called actions in Navigation List Builder, basically pulling the terminology from wherever we're putting that data. So they're the same thing. They're just called actions instead of go-tos or drill downs. Okay, so I'm going to save that. We're going to go to our financial navigation pane over here, and now we see our financial batch here. And once it runs, you can see that data. This is our display section. The bottom portion here is our preview, so we could define what goes in each section. In the preview section, you can actually define out to 3 columns if you'd like to. So that's navigation lists. Again, once you learn SmartList Builder, navigation lists kind of come in hand with that. Okay, a couple other things I want to show you. Let me just go home so I get my bearings straight here. On our website, we have under downloads, and our website is just eonesolutions.com. Go to downloads, pick SmartList Builder. If you need a newer build, here they are for you. Look for within the next couple of few days here, we'll be releasing some more new builds, but and we'll post them out there, and I'll post a blog article when we release those. But we have templates. So if you're looking at this going, you know what, I've tried to use it, or I'm looking at this to use it, and I just don't know if I can do it, or I haven't been able to do it, we actually have a lot of templates out here that you can use right out of the box, or you can use them as examples. You know, how do they do that? How do they get those tables to link together? Use them as examples, use them out of the box. They're here for you. You can see things though like our GL budget versus actual that I showed you at the start, or our financial batches that we looked at and built today. They're out here for you to use if you need them. If I go to something like purchasing, some of the real common ones out here are these PM distributions with the GL summary or the GL detail, depending on if you post in summary or detail to the general ledger. So a real common one to get your payables distributions and get all that GL information that's going with them. So there's a lot of different ones that we've built out here. Some of them mimic the default ones. Some of them are brand new items. So they're here for you to use. If you're on 2015, you can actually go and import them here. If you're on something earlier, you're going to go to the same location under SmartList Builder Import. The window is just going to look a little different, so you have to download them from the website if you're on something prior to 2015. Download them using this little download link, and then come in this window and add them and import them. But if you're on 2015, you can actually import directly from the web. So I just pick purchasing, and I can pick that distribution with GL detail. Now make sure you get the one for the where you want it to go, which builder you want it to go into. You click import, it's going to run its process, and you'll have that right in that product. Okay, so we've built those in. I'm going to flip over to my machine here just to give you a quick what's in there in case you're on an older version and you have are looking to update to a newer one. We talked about a lot of these being able to modify the existing SmartLists or create new ones. SQL scripting we added. The table finder we looked at, so those are the 2013 features that we added. In 2015, we added that SQL scripting to Excel reports, the ability to modify Canadian payrolls. We added that library I just showed you of the templates. We did a little bit of work around security in 2015 as well. For Excel Report Builder, you can create your own roles. So if you're using Excel Report Builder, know what I'm talking about with the RPT roles. You don't have to use the defaults anymore. You can create your own. Did a little bit of table levels. So if you're, say, using payroll and you want some people to be able to build lists but not build payroll lists, you can create two different roles, one where you give them access to all the tables, one where you limit the tables they can see in SmartList Builder. Okay, we copy fields. We use linked forms, so you can actually, those drill downs that we created to go back from Excel back to GP, we can actually add that same one to a GP window, so I can go from one GP window to another GP window using those drill downs. And then we added the default security roles and tasks. So if you're brand new to it, there are default roles and security tasks so that you can just check your users into those, and then they'll have access to SmartList Builder. 2015 R2, so we added some more features when we released an R2 version, which added the ability to do extender window notes, which are an extender object. You can create those in SmartList Builder now too. And then that modify button I kept clicking to get back to SmartList Builder, we put security on that button. So you can actually take away security to that modify button now. If you hadn't done it, or if you had it before, didn't have that security option, if you didn't have access to SmartList Builder, it would open Designer for you. And people didn't like that, so we put security on that button so that it doesn't open anything at all. 2016, when are we going to release? So this is kind of pre stuff we haven't released yet, so what's coming? We don't have a lot coming in the first release here, but they're adding a button to SmartList for import and export of your Designer setup. So if you were using Designer, you can import and export those now. Well, if you're using SmartList Builder, we want you to be able to use that same button and not have confusion around it, so we are adding our own logic to that button to work with SmartList Builder as well. Look for more features to come in 2016 as we get going here. Upgrades. If you're going to 2015 or 2016, there's really nothing you have to worry about. Just install the product and it'll upgrade for you. If you're coming to 2013 from 10 or 2010, there's a process you have to run. Be sure to read it through in the manual. And then resources. Kim kind of started this one way back when with me. Builder Monday, it actually happened this past Monday, so if you're a member of GPUG or if you're looking at buying SmartList Builder, I'd suggest being a member of GPUG. The Premier members can join us for Builder Monday once a month, where we'll talk about different topics. Changes up every month. Every once in a while we'll do something. Maybe we did a presentation at Amplify here. We'll do it again for you if you weren't able to go to Amplify. We do that, but we do have a blog on our site. We have forums on our site, as well as the GPUG site has forums where you'll see a lot of different SmartList Builder questions and answers coming through there. We also do offer training. I'm sure Kim can talk about the training they offer as well, but we have training for you, of course, if you need it. I'm going to go back and put my contact information on the screen, and I will open it to questions.
Excellent. All right, I had to unmute myself. On the right-hand side, everybody, type in any questions that you would like to ask Nicole before we let her go. This is great, and yes, there's a lot of great education out on your website and through GPUG and now through what we are doing here as well. So thank you, Nicole, very much for a great presentation today. And again, remember, if you like what you saw, there's a lot of folks that are out there that have not yet purchased SmartList Builder. We do have that promotion going on at 25% off the software through the month of June. So reach out to your sales rep and we'll get some discussions going. So Nicole, I don't have any questions in the queue, and you know, my experience in working with SmartList Builder is it can be brought down to the modular sense. I know that there's a lot of folks out there that are payables professionals or receivables professionals, and there's just a lot of SmartLists out there that's been built around each of those. What are some new and kind of cool things that you've heard lately and ways that people have been using SmartList Builder that would be kind of a new insight to its capability?
We see a lot of people lately not even reporting on GP data, pulling in other data they have in SQL elsewhere, just because they like SmartList, they're familiar with it, you know, they want to be able to report on it all in one place, so they'll just build lists that have nothing to do with GP. Maybe they have some custom SQL tables, another application. They're building lists that can pull in that data for them. And so a lot of lists that aren't anything GP, we have no clue what the data is that they're trying to pull in, but we're building them and pulling that into SmartList so that they can see it there instead of having 3 or 4 different applications. Also, we see a lot of third parties releasing SmartList Builder setups to their customers. You know, you might buy a product and they automatically have some SmartList Builder setups for you to import, where if you don't have SmartList Builder, you don't get those SmartLists available to you at all. So,
really good insight. Good. All right, and here we've got something in the queue. And it reads, I want to put in a plug that SmartList Builder product is one that we highly recommend for any payroll customers especially. The built-in GP reporting in that area is quite light, and every client has individual reporting needs. Of course, our friend here, Charlene, has to get that plug in because she's passionate. SmartList Builder is a great tool and easy for users. So guess what, Nicole? You owe her a cup of tea. That's a nice compliment.
I can do that. I'm trying to think. We even had, I don't think I've posted them yet, Wally Dodds, if you're familiar with him, gave me some payroll ones that I should get out here that he wanted to share with the community. So we get ones from all over. People are sharing with us too. So I'll get some more templates out there. So you just have them, your payroll lists already built for you as long as you have SmartList Builder. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Nicole. Time is up. Sure appreciate your time. And again, everybody, if you've got additional questions, please get in touch with Nicole or myself, kim.peterson@InnerDyneBMI, and we'll get you some help. Thank you so much. Thanks, Nicole.